And welcome back for another edition of the Fancast Live podcast. Mike and I are on the pod tonight, reviewing the Sunday night debacle, the 40-0 loss to the Dallas Cowboys. The New York Giants appeared to not have shown up at all for this game, Mike. Um, we were just talking just prior to coming on, and I told you I basically fell asleep right after the start of the third quarter because I just didn't think the Giants had it in them to come back in this game. Thanks for coming on, Mike. Appreciate it. How you doing today, bro?
Doing great. Can't complain other than sitting through that debacle live on Sunday night.
Yeah, so
Everything else
you
is pretty
you were
good.
at the game, and tell us who your buddy was that was with you.
Yes, I had a good friend of mine with me that happens to be a Cowboys fan. Uh, we're walking into the stadium and everybody's happy and smiling and the Giant fan base seems like they're pretty rabid and getting themselves all excited and by the end of the first drive it was all gone. It was all gone.
Mike, there was so much to be excited about going into the season because, as we spoke on our first podcast last week, we said that there was about 25 to 30% roster turnover in the offseason, with the wide receiver core being revamped a bit. Some offensive. Obviously, we drafted John Michael Schmidt to be the center. You had Evan Neal coming back. You had Andrew Thomas coming back. Things are looking good. Daniel Jones gets the big contract, yada, yada, yada. And you go into this game, and all the talk prior to this game, obviously, was the talent gap. Did the Giants close that talent gap? And we spoke about this on the last podcast.
Yep.
And obviously, from this 40-0 loss on Sunday night, it's quite evident that talent gap hasn't shrunk for shit. So, what was your first initial reaction to this loss, Mike? I want to hear your reaction because I know you got plenty to say.
My first initial reaction is that Bobby Johnson needs to be punted into the sun. Uh, Between him and Thomas McGahee for special teams, I mean these two guys, I don't know how they're still employed. Um, you've watched guys regress under Bobby Thompson, right? No, like Evan Neal came out, like everybody understood, he's playing left tackle in college a little bit. He played mostly right tackle there, but his last year he played left. You expected him to come in. There'd be a little bit of growing pains. He's not allowed to do any vertical sets, which is what he did a lot of in college, which allows him to have better position, picking up guys coming off the edge. And, these guys are getting worse, right? Andrew Thomas was already on his way up before Bobby Johnson got here, right? You saw improvement from Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas went out and got his own coach in the offseason to work with, right? And trying to get himself right and continue his development. They have a problem with the coaching staff on the offensive line coach. It is bad, and it is a problem. And you look at I don't know if you know who Wyatt Teller is. Wyatt Teller was an offensive guard, got drafted by the Buffalo Bills out of the 5th round. Teller got drafted, comes in. Bobby Johnson doesn't like him, right? He's got the guy working. He doesn't like the way the guy blocks, whatever it may be. They turn around and they trade this guy to Cleveland for a late round pick. They send him off to Cleveland, right? He goes to Cleveland with Bill Callahan, who's considered to be, next to Mike Munchak and Dante Scarnecchia, are considered to be some of the 3 best offensive line coaches in the NFL across the board. He goes to Cleveland. Wyatt Teller becomes an all-pro offensive guard. Okay, so you see things like that kind of play out, and you have to start to question your coaching staff. I question Dable's decision making here because he's going to be the one ultimately responsible for whether or not Johnson is going to stay on this staff. I think that Dable's blind spot is that he is loyal to a fault. It was a blind spot that Tom Coughlin had during his tenure here. He was very loyal to his guys. He did not want to part ways with his guys. But the offensive line has regressed. You watched it from last year where it was like, it's not great, but it's not terrible. and you figure a year two with Evan Neal coming into this game and an off season, they add Schmitz like you mentioned. You're feeling pretty decent, but you go and you invest money and you go and invest these draft picks in, Josh Azudu and McCathan, and Azudu comes into the season, and you're going to tell me that in his second year he can't get on the field over Mark Lewinsky or Brent Burton? Like, how much worse could he be? I mean, really, at least there's an opportunity for him to develop and ascend, where you're rolling these other guys out there, and these guys just they're not it, and they're never going to ascend. They're on the tail end of what they're going to be. So we need an offensive line coach change. Mike Munchak actually is available right now. He is not working with the team. He's just working with the Steelers as an advisor, but he is not working as a coach. I think the Giants would be missing a huge opportunity if they don't make that move, because if they don't, it's looking like Evan Neal is going to be a bust of a player, which you used the 7th overall pick and you whiff on that pick. That's a big problem, right?
Yeah, and the talk is starting already over Evan Neal being a possible bust as a 7th round pick. I mean, you know more about coaching than I do. You obviously can see better than what most people can see on the field. I mean, I could see that the whole entire right side of the offensive line for the Giants was just horrendous yesterday, between Evan Neal and who's that, Glowinski, or was that Bredesen on the right side?
I was Glowinski on the right side.
They were terrible, without a doubt. Evan Neal looks like he's top heavy. He's lunging. I mean, that's what I can see. I don't know if that has anything to do with his footwork, but by putting it in slow motion, I could see that him lunging, the top of his body lunging forward, he's just putting himself out of position. He's just going to be taken advantage of. I mean, that's what I see.
Well, there was a play actually where you actually saw him get grabbed and he got thrown down like a rag doll.
Right? I saw that.
There's a guy that's 6'7". He's 300 plus pounds. Gets grabbed and tossed to the side like he's like literally he's just trash on the side of the street. They just flicked him over and just kept it moving. So they need to get the offensive line fixed. They need to get that corrected. And it's going to start with coaching. There's no player that they can go out and get, right? There's no draft. You're not trading draft picks right now to go out and try to add a guard, right? Or to try to add another offensive lineman. And nor do I want them to, right? Like I don't need you trading future draft picks right now trying to fix this problem. Like,
yeah, that to me would be an overreaction. I mean, it's just one game, but how much of this does it have to do with the Dallas defensive line just being elite? I mean, I know we're going to see the Arizona Cardinals come this week. If they have a better performance, can we say that the Cowboys are just an elite defensive line, and we'll just throw it out as that?
Sure. I mean, you could. I mean, my concerns entering this weekend's game, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but my big concern is, the head coach Gannon over there. He wrote the book on how to slow down, Kafka and Dable, right? Like he with Philadelphia, like he gets it, right? And what you saw Sunday night was Dallas, incorporating a lot of those things. One of the areas where the Giants were successful last season was on bootlegs. Right, they ran a lot of bootlegs, right? Where it was that fake toss and or the fake handoff play action, and Jones out on the boot to give him some time, and it gave him one quick easy read or take off with the football, right? And you could see teams have adjusted because Dallas sold out against Daniel Jones. So they basically said, you know what, Saquon, you could have your yards, right? If he wants to hand you the ball and you're going to go get, 10 yards on this run or 5 yards on another one, whatever it may be, but we're going after the quarterback. And you saw that because anytime Jones tried to keep the ball on a bootleg during the game, the Cowboys came flying downhill no matter what, and they were burying him. I mean, at one point we tried to run a power sweep with the quarterback to get 2 guards out in front, and Jones got hit 3 yards in the backfield. Like they are not – these teams are basically made the decision – that they're going to allow Saquon Barkley to get his touches, get his yards, and they're banking on the fact that in the modern NFL, you don't win with explosive run plays. You have to win through the air. So they're going to concede Saquon getting his touches, getting his yards, doing his thing, and they're banking on the fact that the quarterback is not going to be able to consistently win with his arm. And Dallas showed it. You're talking about the last two games now that the Giants have played a legitimate opponent, both division rivals. You lost 78-7. Like you're getting your ass kicked week in and week out. And these are the teams. And this was the big thing for me before the season started. Daniel Jones, when people ask me like, how are you? What do you think? Is he going to make the next jump? Like we added these things and the line should be better and these things should be better. And my thing was I got to see it against Dallas and Philly. Like I need to see you show up in those games and find ways to put the team on your back and put yourself in position to win those games. And for the 2023 season right now, he's got 3 more games left against those teams. We're not off to a raving start where I feel any better about his performance or where his performance could be headed.
I mean, would you agree with me that you really can't put this all on Daniel Jones? Because Daniel Jones, I don't think he's the only culprit in this whole 40-0 loss on Sunday night against the Cowboys. The offensive line obviously had a say in it. The special teams had a say in it, and Daniel Jones is part of the problem. But I mean, the offensive line didn't really help. Glowinski and Neal really had a bad game. Then you had Andrew Thomas go down with an injury, and he kept playing. I don't think that was that was good on Dable's part to keep him in the game after he had tweaked that hamstring, and now he's reports are saying he's day to day. I don't know how long they're going to hold him out of practice until, and I don't even know if he's going to be able to play on Sunday against the Cardinals, and if he's not, then who do you replace him with? So I mean, there's a whole lot of blaming to go around in this 40-0 loss, but I tell you, the Cowboys scored a defensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown. They scored 3 times and only possessed the ball once in the first quarter, and you're down 16-0 right off the bat, and they only possessed the ball one time, and that one possession they had was a field goal.
Right.
So right off the bat, right at the start of the second quarter, I think they had a 19-0 lead. And the game was pretty much over because, I mean, like I said, you allow your opponent to score a special teams touchdown, a defensive touchdown, you're pretty much done. There's no way, and I don't remember ever seeing a team ever turn a momentum on their opponent after their opponent has scored defensively and special teams. Have you?
Yeah. No, I have not. And it looked like the players' attitude after the block was, oh, okay. And then the defensive touch, and then it's like, all right. Like, just like what you're saying from a momentum standpoint, it looked like they just kind of said, you know what? We're getting our ass beat today. Like, there's some shit going on that we can't control at this point, and, it's just not our day. And quite frankly, the rest of the game, they played that way. They looked that way the rest of the game. It looked like guys were going through the motions. The weather was bad. Like, you start piling in, it's pouring down there. You're getting smoked against a division rival on national television. Like, it's just, the one thing you're looking to do is just like, please, can this game just end? I want to go back in the locker room and get the hell out of here. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And
that said, shouldn't Dable have taken out most of his starters in this game? I mean, what was the sense of keeping these players in the game late in the third quarter, even in the fourth quarter? At this point, you're down by a reasonable, a ridiculous margin. Daniel Jones is still out there now. I don't know if Daniel Jones has had any say in that. Maybe he talked Dable into keeping him in the game. Maybe Dable wanted to keep him in the game because he's, talking about, they need to get their reps. They should have gotten their reps in the preseason. You don't get your reps in a 40-0 game, and on a night when it's pouring rain, the weather sucks, you're being blown out, the Cowboys are laughing at you, you're getting stomped on, your offensive line isn't protecting the quarterback, Daniel Jones is running all over the place. There's just nothing there. I think Dable should have pulled the starters, Daniel Jones and specifically Andrew Thomas, who had gotten hurt earlier in the game on that interception return.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like he was hobbling, and then
Yep.
there was a few other times when we saw him, limp up and bend over, hop. You could clearly see that his hamstring was bothering him. I'm surprised that Dable kept him in this game.
So I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of I don't want to get shut out at home against a division rival in prime time. And a lot of that is, a lot of it's ego driven to a degree. It doesn't mean that Dable's an egomaniac or anything like that. It's just, there's a level of pride that comes with, being a head coach, and you're the last thing you want to do is lose with a shutout at home against a division rival in prime time in the manner in which it is. So I think they were just looking for any way that they could try to get a spark to score points, or get anything on the board. I remember turning to my friend midway through the third quarter, and I said to him, if Saquon Barkley doesn't break a run, this offense not scoring today. There's no way they're going to get points on the board. It's not going to happen. They need him to break one to get 7 on the board, or they're just not. They're not scoring. And it was clear, right? And I think, again, the playbook right now for the Giants offense is out, right? And I think there are limitations. And it's not just Jones' fault. You're 100% right. The offensive line was abysmal, right? So there's a lot of other factors. But I was explaining to someone in fact, yesterday, we were having a discussion, and they were bringing up the fact, well, he got sacked 7 times, and, he got pressured 22 times. I said, well, how many dropbacks did he have? He said, we have 38 dropbacks. Okay. So
there were 36 pressures by the Cowboys defense. 7 of them were sacks, 12 of them were QB hits.
Right. So my response to him was, if you look at that mathematically, what did he do on the plays where he was clean? Because I understand the line was not playing well. I get it, right? Like we understand that, right? But what happened when the line actually gave you time? You were late on a throw.
Yeah.
You missed a read, right? And
he wasn't going through his progressions, and we talked about it in the last episode. You specifically pointed that out, that he still has a hard time going through his progressions. And there are a bunch of plays, because I looked at some of the highlights and some of the videos on YouTube, and people are pointing out, hey, listen, if DJ would have just looked at his fucking receiver, he could have had, Darren Waller, for a clean touchdown. Or, I think Barkley. I think that the throw to Barkley that he ends up getting hit by Diggs, he shouldn't have thrown it there. He had because you probably could, if you know the play I'm talking about, you probably could explain it better than I can. Because I think I forget when it was, but it was a play where it was a screen pass to Barkley, and Diggs let his receiver go downfield to come and cover Barkley, and Daniel Jones still throws it to fucking Barkley instead of throwing it down the field to, I forget who it was on the outside. It could have been Slayton. It could have been Campbell. I don't know who it was. Do you know what play I'm talking about?
It was Hodgins was outside.
Okay.
Playing a cover 2, right? They're playing a cover 2.
Right.
That area of the field, when you get beyond the corner and before the safety, it's referred to as the honey hole, right? Like that's what it's referred to as, right? Like it's the soft spot in the zone where the corner is going to play up to play the flat, and he's going to let the receiver go, and the safety is going to be responsible for getting there over the top in order to cover that guy. And the quarterbacks that have some stones will routinely throw that ball and thread that needle into that gap. So if you want to really go back, that is the Mario Manningham catch in the Super Bowl, is the throw to the honey hole. That is Eli Manning threading the ball over the corner before the safety on the sideline and dropping it in the bucket to get a big chunk yardage play. And it's ironic that play came up in the game on Sunday night, because I often have said, if you go back and you look at that play, Manning to Manningham in that Super Bowl, there's a guy on the screen. You'll see him open in the middle of the field for like 7 yards, right? That was the check down read. It was 7 yards away, right? And you seen Eli basically know he knew what coverage they were in. He knew it, right? Like he knew what coverage they were in, and he dropped back, looked right, and just turned and fired the ball because he knew where the hole was going to be in the defense. Daniel Jones still doesn't know that, and these are issues. So when you have that play arise and he's scanning the field, and all of a sudden he starts seeing ghosts. I know we picked on Sam Darnold for making those comments. Jones was seeing ghosts. When the pressure wasn't there, it was there, right? And Carl Banks even brought it up yesterday. He made a remark on his podcast that he has, and he brought up the fact that what Daniel Jones did, it got exposed as somebody that doesn't handle pressure, right? And when things aren't going right for you, he's folding under pressure. And Carl was very explicit. Like, that's the one thing you can't do. You can't let the other team see that if they get pressure on you, you're going to start to panic. And he started to panic. And going into this game coming up on Sunday against Arizona, first off, Andrew Thomas should not play, number one, under any circumstance. I understand he's the best offensive lineman we have. I understand the concerns about what's the line going to look like if he doesn't play. Andrew Thomas should not be playing in this game. Okay, he needs to rest. I wouldn't even play him against San Francisco. I don't think we're beating San Francisco whether Thomas plays or doesn't play against the 49ers. So you're better off sitting him out the next 2 weeks and just leaving him on the East Coast. Let him rehab and get ready for Monday night against Seattle when you get back from that West Coast trip. But outside of that, I have concerns now that if Thomas doesn't play, which I don't expect him to, that Gannon, who wrote the book on how to attack the Giants' offense, they don't have the guys up front that can rush four and create pressure. But these guys are just going to blitz, and they're just going to keep coming after Jones over and over and over again. And until he starts beating those guys with his arm, and he can beat the blitz with his arm, we're going to have a problem. Now, I think we're going to win on Sunday for sure, but it's not going to be a cakewalk. Like, they're going to be struggling to win that game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 3 or 2 point game, that way that game's going to play out, because I don't think our offense is going to be able to move the football through the air. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, regardless who the opponent is on Sunday, I'm not overly confident. I mean, granted, Arizona's got a second or third stringer starting at quarterback.
Yeah,
What's his name?
Joshua Dobbs.
Okay, but still, they have enough talent to get the ball down the field. I mean, it's not like they don't. They still have James Conner. They still have some speedy receivers. I mean, all they got to do is get the ball to them. But getting back to the Cowboys, I mean, Micah Parsons, the dude is just, I can't even explain it. He's just out of his fucking mind. He did a lot of twists and turns. He wasn't just lining up on one side of the field or the other. He was coming from the right. He was coming from the left. He was coming from the middle. I mean, he was coming from every direction. The Cowboys gave the Giants no respect in the passing game. They pretty much said, "Here, we're gonna give you whatever fucking receiver you want open. You got to get him the ball. You're gonna beat us. You're gonna beat us through the air because you ain't gonna beat us with the run." And they would just stuff in the gaps. They would just put pressure on DJ. I mean, in that first possession, the Giants. I thought those were plays designed for DJ to run. I don't think they were. I think he was just running for his life. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. That was a part of their game plan, all of last year with Jones, where it was basically if you don't see the first read and it's not there, tuck and run, right? Like just right through the B gap, right? And you saw it. That's what he did, right? Like the first drive, there were a couple of plays where Nothing was there, he ran, got a first down. Nothing was there, he ran, got another first down, right? And he was able to move the ball with his legs. And at one point, I think by the end of the first drive, I think he had like 30 yards rushing already on the first drive, right? Saquon was getting some good running lanes, and the Cowboys stuck to their guns. And they said, yeah, you know what? No, like, we'll give this to you all day long because we don't believe you're going to consistently be able to move the ball on the ground. And at some point, you're going to need to throw it to win the game.
Right.
And we don't trust that you're going to be able to do it. They basically said, throw it deep. Hey, you got Jalen Hyatt? Let him run deep. I'm not. Go ahead. We'll let him run.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You got to
You're
get the
not going
ball
to.
to him.
You're not going to throw the ball to him anyway. The irony about what you said about Parsons about being out of his mind. I took ridicule on Twitter quite a bit in the beginning because when I looked at Micah Parsons when he was coming out of college and after his rookie year with Dallas, I said point blank, he's the closest player I physically have seen to Lawrence Taylor ever. I've never and I went back and just to make sure I wasn't like hallucinating, I went back and looked at like LT's height and weight and 40 time coming out of college, and they're almost identical. They're the same height, same weight. Parsons is actually a little bit faster than LT, right? So I'm looking at this guy and I'm going, fuck, like and and Dallas gets this guy, and you're like, okay, and you watch what he's developed into, and Giant fans get very testy, when you're like, oh, nobody's Lawrence Taylor. I'm not saying he is, right? Lawrence Taylor was the last defensive player to win MVP, right? Like, let's just call it what it is. He's the greatest defensive player that's ever lived, right? So I'm not saying that he's equivalent to Lawrence Taylor, but the irony in that was right after I said that, and we had that, and I was having that conversation 2 years ago, Lawrence Taylor comes out with a tweet and says Micah Parsons is the closest player I've seen to myself. Like, so the greatest defensive player of all time comes out and basically says that guy's a bad man because you could see it. He's that dominant, and Micah Parsons is that dominant of a player. And as much as people give Dak ridicule, Dallas is a legitimate Super Bowl threat this season with that defensive unit. They're a legit Super Bowl threat with that defensive unit. They've got good enough positions on the offense. They could run the football. They've got a good offensive line, and people are going to ridicule Dak and say you can't win the big one. Can't win the big one until he actually wins the big one, right?
Right.
And right now, the way it looks to me is it's Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Dallas, and then everybody else is just chasing tail. You want to throw Detroit in there as the fourth team, but after that, there's a huge gap before you get to anybody else because Atlanta ain't it. The Giants right now ain't it. And so I have concerns. In fact, I have such concerns that if they lose to Arizona this week, I don't see them winning a game until potentially the Commanders in late October. Like they are in for a world of pain coming up with this schedule. This is not an easy schedule this season, and they're playing a lot of really good defenses, a lot of really good defensive coaches. And quite frankly, the way the line is blocked, I'm worried that Daniel Jones doesn't even make it through the first 6 weeks of the season healthy. He's not going to be able to sustain getting hit the way he got hit Sunday night. By the time he gets done with San Francisco and you get done playing the 49ers on a short week, and then you got to, follow that up by playing Seattle's defensive unit, like there's a good possibility that if he's taking these shots, he may not make it through the whole season. He outside of last year, he's gotten injured every season. Last year was the first year he didn't get hurt, and they protected him, right? They called the game plan that allowed him to avoid getting hit. And Sunday night, he took the worst beating I've seen him take, in a couple of years. I mean, that was brutal to watch.
What do the Giants have to do to stop a guy like Micah Parsons? I mean, the guy lines up wherever the hell he wants to line up. If he wants to get to the quarterback, he's going to get there. But how do you stop a guy like that?
You don't. I mean, you don't. You have to scheme around it. Like somebody has to have awareness of where he is on the field at all times, right? I don't see the Giants audibling I don't see Daniel Jones doing any checks with the line, trying to tell the lineman where to shift, where to slide protect. I don't see any of that stuff going on. It's almost as if they're basically saying to Daniel, "This is the play," almost like a rookie. "This is the play. This is what we're running. Go run it." Right? I don't see him audible. I don't see him check with anything. I mean, I can't remember the last time he pointed out the mic. Right? I don't like. There's just it seems like they're putting this. I think they're putting Schmitz in a position where he's responsible for making the line call, right, and letting the line know where to go. And the quarterback is not making those decisions. They don't make hot route reads. They don't like. There's none of it. There's no adjustments. It basically is, this is the play. Go out, run the play, and if the guy's not there, run the football. That's basically what they tell him to do. If this is the read. If it's not there, tuck it and run, right? And you watched it where he couldn't run because he was getting his ass kicked, right, as the game went on. The read wasn't there, and then we're just holding on to the ball, and then taking a sack, right? I even joked to my buddy, I said $160 million, and he can't even throw the football away properly. He rolls out to his right. All he's got to do is flick it out of bounds. No, let me throw it back inbounds. I'm going to throw a pick to Stephon Gilmore. That's Daniel Jones 3 years ago, right? That's 2 years ago, Daniel Jones making those types of mistakes. Like the game against the Steelers where he rolls to his left. You're having a good opening drive. He gets hit and he makes some weird-ass throw and gets picked off in the end zone, and then the game goes off the rails. Like, that is a concerning issue. And the line obviously doesn't do him any favors, but it's a symbiotic relationship. The longer he holds the ball, the more the line's got to block, the more likely that sacks are going to erupt. So it's one hand washes the other, right? Last year they got rid of the ball quick. The line didn't look so bad. This year he couldn't get rid of the ball, and now the line looked terrible, right? So it's a combination of both of those things.
Not for nothing, but Daniel Jones came out after the game and, specifically pointed out that play and says, I was just trying to make something happen. I shouldn't have done it. It'll never happen again. But, like you just said, he's 3-4 years in now. You shouldn't be making those mistakes. You should know to throw the ball away. There's no excuses for that shit, especially when you're down by a large margin already. For you to try to force a play in that instance, it's just not going to pay off for you. And obviously the turnover with the interception. Then you had the other interception that came off of Barkley that was intercepted. Was that the pick six? That was the pick six, right?
That was the pick six. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, how much of that is Barkley's fault? How much of that is DJ's fault?
Both. DJ makes the wrong read, doesn't throw it to Hodgins over the top where he should throw it, and get the Cowboys to start backing off. Right? If he makes that throw to Hodgins in that situation, right, the Cowboys defensively start to back off a little bit. Say, all right, like he made that throw. We're not going to be able to continue running this cover two where we could take away the underneath. We got to start to peel it back a little bit, which would then open up the underneath, right? But Cowboys said, no, man, you're not going to throw that ball. I dare you to throw that ball. And you're not going to do it. And he didn't, right? So you get the result. The other thing, too, with that play is Barkley is equally at fault. And we were talking about this all offseason. People are like, oh, Saquon is just as good as Christian McCaffrey. No, he ain't. He's not. And I like Saquon Barkley a lot. He is not the pass catcher that Christian McCaffrey is. Period. End of story. Okay? Yeah, like, you took a hit, bro. Like, you took a hit. You're a running back. Like, you catch the goddamn ball, you took a hit, hold on to the thing, and go down. There's no reason that Diggs should be coming up from the corner and hitting you and causing that ball to come popping out. Like, I'm sorry.
Yep.
That shouldn't happen. So
no, I agree with you. On that particular play, I think it was mostly DJ's fault because he should have gone to the open receiver going down the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he should have went, and instead he opted to go Barkley, knowing that Diggs is coming around. I mean, the play's right in front of you. How the fuck do you not see that Diggs is coming up?
He wasn't looking. He was looking to his right. If you go back and you look at the play, and if you get a chance to look at the all 22 film, if not, I'll send you the link so you can see it. But if you go back and look at the play, DJ's progression, when he starts, he's looking middle right. Barkley is the safety valve to the left, right? So he's looking for whatever's supposed to open up to his right side, right? Which is why Hodgins, when he clears on the left, down the sideline, he doesn't see it because his look is this way. So now it's pressure. By the time he and there was no pressure on that play, but he's seeing ghosts now. So he's starting to panic when he's holding on to the ball. So now he gets back to his left, and the immediate response is, I'm not looking at the guy down at the end of the field, potentially, that's open. I'm just going to get rid of the ball because I don't want to get hit again. So I'm going to dump the ball off to Saquon, right? And then you get that result. So it's a combination of stuff. They got a lot to clean up before playing Arizona. It is only one game in the loss column, right? No matter whether you lose it by 3 points or 40 points, it doesn't matter. There's still 16 games to go, but they cannot go 1-5 in this division, 2-4 in this division, and then think they're making headway, because they're not, and it's a problem.
Well, if they go 1-5 or 2-4, I don't see how they're making the playoffs this year. I know last year they went 1-4-1, made the postseason because, like they say, every game is important. Yeah, I understand that, but you're facing a tougher schedule this year. You got three primetime games in the first 4 weeks, I think, right?
So you got 3 in the first 4,
right, and then you got Seattle.
And then well, no. So you have the Sunday night game against Dallas that just finished.
Right.
You got Arizona at 4 o'clock this week, so that game's on, more of a national scale because it's a 4 o'clock game. Then you're playing San Francisco on a Thursday night, so that's your second primetime game.
Right.
Then you're coming back home on a Monday night on a primetime game against the Seahawks.
Okay, that's right.
Then you're at Miami, okay, for a 1 o'clock start against that offensive juggernaut that they got rolling down there, right? And then to wrap that up, you get to come back to New York, but to Buffalo, to play the Buffalo Bills at 8 o'clock at night on Sunday Night Football. Like, you could theoretically be seeing a 1-4 New York Giants team on the road in prime time against the Buffalo Bills on 8 o'clock on Sunday Night Football. Like, I mean, I don't know where this goes from there. But after that, I mean, the schedule, I mean, you're talking about after Buffalo, you get a break with the Commanders, which I'm not even going to be willing to say it's a break, because if Sam Howell continues to play well as time goes on and they round into form, Washington's defense is just as formidable as anybody else's that we're going to.
Yeah, I agree.
Followed by the Jets. Then you got the Jets on schedule, right? Maybe you get a breather with the Raiders. Before the season started, I said the Rams would be better than what people anticipated with Stafford being back. They go up to Seattle and win 30.
Yeah, and they win. Yep.
Right? They get a big win. And I talked about Jordan Love was going to be the surprise of the season this year before the season started. I had many conversations with people that said they would not have let Aaron Rodgers go if they were not confident that Jordan Love was going to be able to play well, because these teams have to win games. Coaches can't afford to lose games. They have to win games to keep their job. You can't fall off a cliff. So
how important was it for Jordan Love to sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a couple of seasons?
Yeah, 4 years.
That's a long time.
In the same system, right? He's in the same system, working with the same guys. And what does Jordan Love do? And granted, it's against Chicago. I get it. Chicago's not a great team right now by any stretch. But he goes out there, throws 3 touchdowns as a solid game, throws for 275 yards, looks good, right? He looks good. So right. Now you're sitting there scratching your head. You got the Packers late in the year. You're gonna be playing the Packers on a primetime game late in the year. You got the Rams late in the year. Like, I mean, I'm hard pressed to see where the wins come from. It's really difficult to start looking at games and say, okay, we play in New Orleans. How does that look? We never historically play well in the Dome in New Orleans, right? And New Orleans is probably going to be the best team in the NFC South this season, right? So, you start looking at these things and you're going, shit, man, if they don't get right quick, I mean, we could be looking at like a Ben McAdoo type year 2 with this team where they only end up going out there and they win, maybe 4 or 5 games at the most. And now we're talking about picking inside the top 5 or 6 picks in the draft. And then that poses the question, like, if you're sitting there and you have the opportunity that you can get your hands on Drake May, one of those quarterbacks that's sitting there, are they going to pull that trigger and say, "Fuck, we made a mistake with DJ and we gotta start over"? I don't think they can, because I think financially they've handcuffed themselves. Daniel Jones next year's a $50 million cap hit. Like I don't know, I don't know. There's no. I mean, we're stuck. Gettleman talked about quarterback hell. Well, we're in it. This is where we're at.
We spoke a lot about the offense. Let's talk a little bit about the defense, because the defense didn't look all that great against the run. I believe the Cowboys ran maybe a total of 30 times in this game again on Sunday night against the Giants, and the Giants defense really didn't put up much of a fight against the run either. I mean, what are we seeing from this defense so far? Because there was, like we said at the beginning, the Giants only got what? What the hell was the number that I said? They only had 6 pressures, 3 quarterback hits, and no sacks. So they're not getting a whole lot of pressure on the opposing offensive line, the Cowboys for this instance. What did you see during the course of the game, if you were able to see anything? Because obviously we didn't get a whole lot of pressure. I mean, Dak Prescott didn't really have to do anything. It was it was raining. Dak Prescott didn't really have to do much because the Cowboys were already leading big at that point. So hand the ball off to Pollard, hand the ball off to whoever his backup is, and they ran the ball 30 freaking times. What did you see out of the Giants defense on Sunday?
I saw a run defense that still has a significant problem despite the upgrades they tried to make this year,
right.
Entering this year, right? They still struggled, with giving up good yards per carry. That was an issue. Mind you, Dak, by the way, had a touchdown dropped. I mean, he had a tight end on the goal line squaring the hands. The guy dropped the football, right? I mean, he comes down with that football. We're not having the conversation about Dak not. People are like, "Oh, Dak didn't throw for a touchdown. He didn't need to," but he hit a guy twice. He had 2 guys that during the game that he hit. He had them right at the goal line, and they had 2 drops. Those balls get caught. We're talking about Dak has 2 touchdown passes, in the game. At that point in time. So I think the highlight of the defense, I thought Banks looked very good. I thought Banks played really well. He handled himself well. He did a really good job sticking with his receiver. I really, really was impressed with his game. Hawkins is a big hitter.
Yeah, he had one big hit in that game. I forget who it was that he hit, but he laid a nice hit on him.
He's not afraid to come up and tackle somebody. He's going to come up and try to stick somebody. He's still learning in coverage, right? I think overall he played decent. He still gave up a couple of. He had a penalty against him at one point for pass interference early, which it was pass interference, but he didn't need to commit it. He was with the guy stride for stride. You know what I mean? And that's going to just come with coaching and time and experience. So I felt pretty good about the guys on the corner position. I talked all off season that the Giants needed to add another pass rusher. They failed to do so. And I think that was pretty much exposed. They're unable, to get to the quarterback. You're looking at Tibbs did a lot more dropping back than he probably should be. I like Wink a lot, but there's the flaw in his system is he's trying to always confuse, the offensive front by not knowing who's going to rush, when they're going to rush, and that's great. But they weren't able to do anything with that. And Thibodeau was drafted to go get the quarterback. He's not drafted to drop into pass coverage, right? He needs to be going after the quarterback. And we didn't blitz. Look, Dak Prescott kills the blitz. So the Giants went into that game and said, no, we're going to play a zone defense. We're not going to blitz because we don't have the ability to give Dak, the wherewithal to take advantage of the blitz because Dak.
Yeah, but again, at that point, the Cowboys are leading big. There's no reason why the Giants should give up a big play by rushing the quarterback at that point, because I mean you go in with the rush and you're rushing, more than what you usually would on a particular play, and then you get burned down the field, and now that lead is getting just bigger and bigger. I mean, is that is that a fair point?
I mean, it's definitely a fair point. I think when it comes to the defensive front, a lot of it has to do with discipline in the run fit, maintaining gap control, right, and doing those types of things. And it just seemed to me later in the game the effort wasn't there, right? And I talked about that at the beginning. When you're losing like that and you're playing in that type of weather, that type of rain, and you're just not getting anything from the offensive side of the ball, guys are kind of like, all right, like I don't want to get hurt, and we got to get the hell out of here. Um, and I didn't get the impression that guys were giving up on plays. I think they were chasing down plays. I just, think that they were getting a little lackadaisical in their discipline, and they were giving up run lanes. And quite frankly, Dallas's offensive line is really fucking good, and they've had a good offense. Here we are as Giant fans talking about how we haven't had a good offensive line in 10 years, and Dallas has seemed to have a good offensive line for the last 10 years. Dallas can do no wrong on the offensive line. They get their offensive line right every single time, and they don't have all these guys that are top flight guys, right? It's two guys that were first round picks on that offensive line, Zach Martin and Tyron Smith, right? I mean, and then they took Tyler Smith last year at in the second round, and he didn't even play, this year. So like they are routinely in the right position and getting guys that could dominate at the line of scrimmage, and it makes things significantly easier on Dak Prescott as a result. And you can see it because Dak has beaten the Giants now for 11 consecutive times. So when I have to listen to Giant fans lose their mind and talk about how bad Dak is, and Daniel Jones is as good as a quarterback as Dak is, if only he had all the things that Dak has, he's beaten us 11 times, guys. Like you can't say anything about the guy. He hasn't won a Super Bowl. A lot of guys haven't, but he's beating our ass every time we play him. So I don't know where to go from there. Until we can beat that guy, I don't want to hear people talking about how much he sucks, because he doesn't, because we don't beat him.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's been a long time. I think it was his rookie season since the last time we beat him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a really long time since the last time we beat him. And, what I'm concerned about was last year a flash in the pan, right? And was it a situation similar to what happened back in 2016, where, the Giants came out of nowhere that season? Eli and Odell kind of pushed everything, for the offense the whole year. The defense was exceptional. I think last year the Giants defense played really solid football. They didn't give up a lot of scoring. They didn't give up a lot of touchdowns, very similar to what they did back in 2016. They didn't give up a lot of red zone touchdowns. They only gave up about 7 red zone touchdowns in 2016. The defense is doing their thing, keeping the offense close. Odell hits a slant. He scores, right? Giants win some games. They ride that into the postseason. And then they lied to themselves the following offseason saying, we're close. And instead of making a succession plan for Eli Manning, when they could have just sat there and, taken Patrick Mahomes and let him sit for a year to develop behind Eli and then parted ways, they opted to draft Evan Ingram, right? And they go, no, we're going to go get a tight end because we're going to go get Eli another weapon because we have a quarterback and we're great. And then the following year you go 2-14 and you fall off a cliff, right? I have a lot of concerns that if things start to unravel, even if, let's be realistic here. Even if they beat Arizona, there's a realistic possibility that this team is 1-5 by the time they play the Commanders. Like, you're not going anywhere with a 1-5 record this season. You got no hope at that point. So, if you're staring at 1-5 by the time you get to the Washington game, at that point, like you're again, the wins are going to be hard pressed to come by. And I think we may be sitting here in a couple of weeks, 6-7 weeks, you and I will be talking about how the trade deadline's approaching, and the Giants are going to have to start selling off some pieces like Saquon Barkley and Adoree Jackson and Leonard Williams, that guys that are not going to be here next year. And they're going to have to start to tear this thing down a little bit. And try to get some draft picks to load up for the following year.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So we're looking ahead to the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know how much homework you did on the Cardinals, but obviously this is a game that I think the Giants have a good chance of winning. Obviously, they got to put it all together, and they can't give up defensive touchdowns. They can't give up turnovers. They can't give up pick sixes. They can't get field goals blocked. I mean, Graham. This is the first time I've seen Graham miss two straight field goals. I mean, the guy is pretty much automatic, and I think he's on the injury report. Is he?
He is. He is questionable for this week as well, along with Azeez Ojulari now as well. Azeez is questionable with a hamstring. You've got Darren Waller now with his hamstring, and saying that it's probably going to be something that's going to be bothering him all year. So
something with the nerve thing. I overheard a conversation. Yep. Something that was bothering him last year. That's something to do with the nerve and not actually the hamstring.
Yep, something with the nerves. So now we're having a problem with him. Azeez is hurt. Thomas is hurt. Right, that injury bug, which we talk about, it comes for everybody. At some point, guys are going to get injured and they're going to miss some time. But you're losing those guys already. Arizona could run the football. I would be concerned. Our weakness is stopping the run. Arizona is going to focus on running the football, right? That's going to be their game plan. Is going to be run the ball and play aggressive defense. Like, I would not be shocked if you see Arizona blitz somewhere around 50% of the time in this game against us, because they're not going to be able to get the pressure with four the way Dallas could. But there's talks now that Azudu is going to potentially start at left tackle this week if Thomas is out. So now you're looking at Azudu at left tackle, Bredson at left guard, Schmitz, Lewinsky, and Neal. I mean, we already know what the right side of the line is giving you, which ain't much. And now you're going to have to worry about, the blind spot coming up as well. And I'm sure Gannon is going to be telling his guys they're going to have to throw it over the top because we're not giving them the underneath. And we're going to go after this guy and make him have to force him to try to throw the ball underneath. And I'll be weary that Jones has another pick six this week. I think there's a good possibility that, that will occur if he's getting that pressure again because the line is bad, and he tries to get rid of that ball and he starts panicking a little bit. There's a possibility we could be looking at another pick six, and that's what Arizona's going to need to try to win this game. I mean, they almost pulled it out in Washington, where they stripped Sam Howell and ran it back for a touchdown. Right, it was a fumble, ran it back for a touchdown. So I have concerns about that, and then Jones is going to have to shake off the cobwebs, and when he has an opportunity to step up and make plays, he's going to have to make those plays when they arise. I mean, I watched the 49ers against Pittsburgh. I don't know if you watched the game on Sunday at all, but, T.J. Watt was destroying Brock Purdy in that game. He strip sacked him twice, right? One he couldn't recover. The other one he stripped right out of his hands, took the ball away. And what did Brock Purdy do? When T.J. Watt didn't get to him, he delivered the ball where it needed to be. And that's the difference. Like, it's not always going to be perfect, but when you have those moments where you have the opportunity, do you capitalize on them? And that's what the Giants were missing on Sunday. They just could not capitalize on any of the opportunities that were presented to them.
Well, all the chips have to fall in the right place for the Giants to have a successful Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals, that's for sure. I mean, the offensive line, regardless of whether they have Andrew Thomas or not, they need to perform at a high level and protect Daniel Jones to give him enough time to go through his progressions and get the ball down the field. Obviously, Sunday against the Cowboys, they shied away from the run after that first possession. I think they should have just continued running the ball. I mean, again, the weather was a factor. Throwing the fucking ball, there was no reason for Daniel Jones to be dropping back or even being in the shotgun to throw the ball down the field on a night when it's just pouring rain and the ball is wet and, you might not get the ball where you need it to go. But, again, the offensive line obviously has to do their part in order to protect Daniel Jones to get, have him go through his progressions, throw the ball down the field, and make some completions because obviously he didn't throw for a lot of yardage on Sunday. I mean, he was under pressure most of the time. Like I said, in that first quarter, he was running for his life most of the time. He had his, 30, 40 yards of rushing. but that's
Hmm.
because they weren't. I don't think they would design plays, and if they were, I didn't. I can't even tell. But I know he was running for his life. But Sunday, the offensive line obviously has to do their part in protecting Daniel Jones. The defensive line has to stuff the run, and they got to get to the quarterback. They got a backup. Obviously, he's going to make some bad
But
decisions, and you got to force him into making some bad decisions to try to get a turnover. Turnovers are going to be a key factor for the Giants' defense.
yeah, dial up the blitz this week. Wink last season, the Giants blitzed 50% of the time. The game Sunday, they didn't blitz nearly at all against Dak Prescott. Joshua Dobbs is not Dak Prescott, right? This is your opportunity as a defense to go out there and create some pressure and force this guy to make mistakes and put your offense in a better position to win this game. And that's really where it's going to come down to. I think that our defense will be able to do that against Dobbs and the Cardinals offense. I still think that the Giants are going to come out victorious in this game. Although I think it'll be closer than what
Yeah,
most people would be.
I feel the same way. I think it's going to be a very close game. It's probably going to be a field. I think a field goal is probably going to dictate whether they win or lose this game.
Yeah, but I do think that the Giants will win this game. I think that you'll see the fan base will start to calm down a little bit. I won't
Mm.
be because I'm not going to be super excited about beating a backup quarterback and beating the Arizona Cardinals, who
Yeah,
appear to be
looking forward to the San Francisco 49ers in Week 3.
yeah, and the pleasure that we get of having that happen 3 days later, right? So it's Wednesday now. We're gonna get to this game Sunday. We'll be here before we know it. We'll have a recap Monday, and people feel good. You'll get through Monday Night Football, Tuesday, Wednesday, bang, and here we are Thursday night and playing the 49ers in San Francisco, and you know I,
A place the
I
Giants
it is
really
what
don't
it is.
do well in either. The Giants
Nope,
never do well when they go out west.
nope. Historically they don't, and it is what it's going to be at the end of the day with this team. There's a lot of things they need to do, but to recap, the number one thing that I'd be focusing on right now, I'd be making adjustments to my special teams coach, because there's clearly a miscommunication going on there, and our special teams is not performing well. And I'd be focusing on trying to find a change from my offensive line coach, coming out of this, because if I can get my hands on Mike Munchak and get him here, I throw the bag at him, whatever you got to do to get him to New York. But you need Mike Munchak here to start to get these guys coached properly. And Dable's going to have to say goodbye to his buddy.
Yeah, and Adoree Jackson needs to stop fucking taking punt returns and kickoff returns back. I heard the Giants are bringing some guys in to see if they can sign a kick returner and a punt returner, because Adoree Jackson should not be back there. I mean,
Yeah,
did they not fucking learn from last year that Adoree Jackson should not be back there? I
yeah.
mean, seriously. I mean, I completely agree with you, man. There's some changes need to be made.
And it's the only thing that you could do in the moment, right? You can't overhaul the players. You're not going to start trading draft picks away, trying to bring in other guys, to get them here now. There's not really no one's going to be trading away any really good quality offensive linemen, at this point. So what are we talking about doing? Trading a fourth round pick, maybe a third round pick to try to get a guy that is in a rotational spot. Like it's not worth it when that pick is going to be more valuable for you next year. And they need to address it. The easiest way to do that is with coaching right now, and giving that an opportunity to work with the players they have. And then if that doesn't work, then you address it in the off season and you plan accordingly. But I did see a tweet today, and I'll leave with this that I thought was pretty funny. Person tweeted out, had the Giants not signed Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, they would have had $42 million available to fix the offensive line. That probably would have been performing better and made people happy. So I thought that was pretty humorous. But
So
you
you
know,
take $42 million and you throw it on the offensive line, and then what do you do at quarterback and what do you do at running back?
well, running back,
Draft?
the way the league is now, it's running back is not a priority.
No, it's
You know,
not.
it's not, and you're going to be able to, you're not going to find a Saquon Barkley But if I could find a guy that could rush for 4 yards a carry, I don't need you to I don't need the breakaway piece, right? Saquon Barkley's a home run hitter. That's why he was drafted. He was drafted to aid Eli Manning in trying to make a last push of his career. And
Didn't
it
work out too well, did it?
and again, what was it? It was, I call them inflection points, right? The Giants were at an inflection point in 2017. They went in the wrong direction. They were at an inflection point. Um, you know, they're at an inflection point. If you go back to, the year that they took Eli Manning, people forget. A lot of the Giant fans now, they a lot of them forget, but that was a playoff team, right? In 2002, they were in a Super Bowl in 2000, 2002. They're a playoff team. They lose a shitty game to the 49ers, which they were winning the whole game. And I mean, they were, Sean Payton was the offensive coordinator. I mean, they were lighting things up. Collins is throwing it to Shockey, and Barber's having a huge year. And like, they were a legitimate football team at that time. And the following year, it all just kind of fell apart. And they go 4-12, and they made the decision at that point. Could they have gone after Larry Fitzgerald? They could have, right? He was in the draft. They could have taken Larry Fitzgerald. They could have went after the big talk was going after an offensive lineman. Robert Gallery out of Iowa was supposed to be the next big thing at left tackle, and he was supposed that was the talk. We can get Robert Gallery and slide him in and continue to ride with Kerry Collins. And they made the decision, like, no, we're going to move in the direction to put the franchise in a better position for the next 10 to 12 years instead of worrying about the next 2 to 3 years. And that yielded 2 Super Bowls. And that was a tough decision to make. And, John Mara was given that inflection point in 2017, and they failed. They can't fail again, right? You can't get to, if this season goes off the rails and you are picking in the top 5, you cannot say, you know what, no, we're just good because we've already invested so much money that we're going to refuse to, draft somebody else at that position. Like, you don't end up in that spot often, right? And great quarterbacks don't allow their teams to end up in that spot, right, where they could potentially draft their replacement. So if we're looking at that this year and they fail on that inflection point, you're looking at another 2 or 3 years of the same spinning your wheels, trying to figure it out. And it could end up being the death nail for Brian Dable and Joe Schoen in the end by committing to this guy, and they're not able to get the productivity that they need.
Let's try to get through week 2 and try to get ourselves a win here. That's all I really care about right now.
Agreed.
It's just fucking. 40-0 is just bad. I mean, I would have taken 20-10, 30-20 or some shit like that, but 40-0. That was heartbreaking to watch. It's just, obviously our expectations were a lot higher. I mean, I called the Giants starting 1-2. I didn't see the Giants winning that game Sunday night against the Cowboys because we spoke a lot about that talent gap, and I just don't see how that talent gap is shrunk. Yeah, exactly.
You didn't expect it like that, right? That talent gap right now is as wide as the Grand Canyon is. I mean, it is night and day right now for where those two teams are in their process and what they're doing and what they're building. So hopefully the Giants will bounce back this week. I have faith that they will bounce back this week against Arizona. Am I going to jump up and down and rejoice that they win the game? No, they should win this football game. If they lose this football game, I will be, deeply concerned about what's about.
That's when the panic sets in.
But right now, I feel pretty confident they're going to go win this football game on Sunday, and they'll regroup, get out to San Francisco. And if you're 1-2 after 3, coming home, maybe there's an opportunity for you to get back to 500 at the end of the first 4 weeks, and give yourself an opportunity to, get in line for your next stretch of games, because it's not going to be easy this year. The schedule is pretty tough.
Yep. All right, Mike. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Thanks for talking some New York Giants football. Hopefully we can get together maybe Sunday night. If not, Tuesday. Tuesday would be best.
Days will work best.
All
Yep.
right. If not Sunday, then definitely on Tuesday, and we'll get together and talk some Giants against Cardinals. Till the
Sounds
next
good.
time. Thanks for your time, brother. Have a good night,
Anytime.
man.
Take care.
Peace.